Welcome back to another episode of Building Enablement, a web series where we talk to enablement professionals and dive deep into the details on programs, trainings, events, and basically anything that they want to talk about, what they did and how they did it. I'm Stephanie Middaugh, and I run enablement at Divvy, a financial tech startup out of the Utah area. And I am joined today by Matt. How do you pronounce your last name, Matt?
Stephanie.
I know. We've known each other for a year, and I still don't know how to pronounce your last name.
All good. Scheitle. Yeah.
Scheitle. Okay. So I know I know a ton about you because we've known each other for over a year now. But tell our audience about who you are, what you do, where you're at. Tell us all about that.
Yeah. So I am currently a senior enablement specialist here at Huddle in good old Midwestern Lincoln, Nebraska. For those of you that don't know what Huddle is, it's a sports tech and analytics company that has been founded by our three founders at UNL and then expanded all the way from across the United States. And now we're a global wide company as well, too. So prior for me being at Huddle, I have never done enablement before. It was a foreign culture to me. I saw sales and something that didn't involve a quota, so I applied for it. Prior to that, I did about 10 years at Verizon as a retail manager, trainer, district manager, just kind of got myself out there. And then I just figured, I want nights, weekends, and holidays back. So I left that world, went into advertising, and that was still a whole new world. But I think without those two experiences, I don't think my development and ideas for enablement would have ever been anything of value without those two additional pieces leading up to this. So yeah. Living here in Lincoln, Nebraska, not much to do. It's corn on one side and cows on the other. So that's what we're doing.
Is cow tipping a thing? I've heard, coming from Southern California, we hear these stories about the Midwest. Is cow tipping a thing?
Only if you go snipe hunting.
What is that?
You have to look that one up.
We'll save that for another episode. Okay, I'm down. Let's focus on enablement. So I am super excited about our topic today, kind of from a selfish standpoint, because I'm going to have to go through this right now and moving forward. And I think a lot of people in enablement are going to be finding themselves in this exact same position coming up at the end of this year. So what are we talking about today, Matt?
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about hosting Kickoff virtually. Many of us are looking at COVID being a huge problem in our planning and development of what Kickoff actually looks like. We're battling the fact of whether engagement is going to be a huge issue. Do we bring everybody or risk safety, for those of you that are worried about that, for our sales reps or everybody else that's going to be coming in and presenting. So yeah, it's kind of what we're going to jump into today.
I am so looking forward to this. I have been picking your brain on this topic, and I know other people in the sales enablement squad have as well. So I am super excited because you've already done this. These aren't just ideas. You actually did this. You turned an entire in-person kickoff into a virtual event. So let's just dive right in. When you were presented with this challenge, this insane challenge, how did you kind of first approach it from a program initiative standpoint?
Yeah. So before we jump into that, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Some people are being how did you already do Kickoff? It's not even January, December yet. Huddle actually has a fiscal year that rolls over in April. So we were in the height of COVID, height of businesses shutting down. So we had to pivot very, very quickly. So with that being said too, we planned months in advance. We started in January. I had my Corp Ops team helping out with us, making sure that our facility was ready to go, making sure that we had AV and IT all set up, ready to go to stream and record and do everything that we wanted to do. This was going to be our biggest kickoff that we've ever done. And I was totally inspired to do an in-person kickoff and make it super fun. I bought anything from swag, food, everything already that was already ready to go. And then, of course, COVID hit. So from that, it was an immediate pivot. And I got to be honest with you, it was one of the scariest moments of what I had to do. I literally am the only one that started planning Kickoff by myself, which is usually an enablement team initiative. But historically, that's just kind of where it's landed with me, coordinating the meetings, making sure our stakeholders are involved, making sure presenters and everything is ready to go. So it was quite a a what am I going to do moment. So the initiative that I knew I needed to do, I had to find a way to host Kickoff, had to find a way to make it interactive, had to find a way to make it engaging, and I had to make sure that it was informative and the information that we're presenting stuck and motivated people for the upcoming year. And so that was a huge, huge, huge thing for us to look at. And I think the only thing that helped me through all this was I took a step back, I took a breath, I made sure that, hey, I'm actually going to end up saving money because I'm not, buying additional equipment or buying food or anything else like that. And then knowing and acknowledging straight and, first that it's going to be different. Like there's going to be a different element to this. And you have to be okay with that. If you're not okay with it, then it's just always going to be wrong. So that was kind of the big initiative of what we had to look at. So
I love that. And so I'm looking at your notes here, and this was a piece that I definitely wanted to ask you about. So you've got ways to get people involved, and I don't want to give anything away because I want you to talk about it, but
yeah.
Tell me about this. These sound so exciting and fun.
Yeah, so involvement was one of the biggest things that we had to look at. So typically a kickoff at Huddle was 2 days. And we knew that a 2-day kickoff over Zoom was going to be one of the most boring things that we could ever possibly do. And so it was, how do we be creative about this? How do we actually take what we wanted to do and implement it in a better fashion for everybody? So first and foremost, we had a breakout sessions planned for day 2. We actually moved those up prior to kickoff, and we had 9 different breakout sessions, all hosted by our sales managers for our reps. They were all recorded. Each rep was mandated to attend 3 of them, so they could pick whatever of the 9 that they wanted to go to and educate and self-educate themselves based off of what their managers had for the upcoming year. So that was one of the biggest things that we enjoyed right off the bat. We shortened kickoff from 2 days to 1 day. And the big things that we kind of implemented along the way is, first of all, I picked a theme. So everybody here in the US, obviously, Steve Carell's show, The Office. We all love it. That was my theme. And so I picked Office clips in between different sessions to play, and we correlated what happened in the clips to basically a new topic or event. So obviously, as we're doing cold calling, we focused a lot on coaching and chorus this upcoming year. So if you guys can recall Dwight Schrute and Jim battling it out over cold calling, with Jim being William D. Buttlicker, it was one of the biggest things that, it got people laughing. It got people motivated to actually listen and discuss a conversation. We also had tons of breaks. So for every 90 minutes that you guys are doing a speaking session, have at least a 10-minute break. And we did a couple of things. We did request line for one of our kickoffs where you submit, a song that you want, just like touch tunes, just like, the old school days where we'd call in to the radio station, say, I want to listen to, whatever song you wanted to listen to. You could put that in and we would play that during break for you for the 10 minutes that were going on. So we had a couple of different things. Interactive games, of course, there's tons of them that are out there. And if you really want to go old school, but kind of yet fun, is Netflix Party. It was kind of a fun way post kickoff to do, but you just pick like a video, so you could do it as a team, a big group, whatever. And it's just like the good AOL AIM days or MSN Messenger. You just literally are typing as the show's going on, and nobody's really watching the show. And you get one person that's constantly just putting one part of the clip back in there. So it's kind of a fun way to break up the day and kind of incorporate something different interactively and remotely as well.
These are great. So you speak to my soul when you were talking about The Office. And I knew the second you said the like cold calling piece, I knew exactly what scene you were talking about. Yeah. I love these ideas because this is definitely something that everybody is struggling with, not just from a kickoff perspective, but just a regular training perspective. How do you keep people engaged? How do you keep them energetic and like going? These are great ideas to kind of just break up what could seem like monotony and, yes, kind of like refresh and like get people back involved and engaged with the topics or the stuff that you're covering. And I love that you paired it with something cultural something fun cultural that people just know. They automatically relate to it. They typically get it for the most part. Like most people will understand that. I love that you tied those two pieces together, because this was something that I talked about like at that conference that you were at, is like create kind of this like anchor point. And that's an anchor point. They might not automatically recall that thing. They're going to recall that like, hey, Matt played this like hilarious like William H. Butler office clip. And what was he talking about? Oh yeah, cold calling. And then they can kind of like trail it from there. I love these anchor points. That's fantastic. And this is so creative. I love this.
Yeah, it was definitely fun. My favorite scene of The Office, not to get off topic, but it's definitely the panic, and we've all seen it with COVID.
Yes.
You know, it's finally happening, and Michael's stressing out the fire alarm. If you don't know the clip, just type in office fire alarm. But that literally was all of us at the very beginning of planning this whole event. So yeah.
I think that was all of us just at the beginning of COVID in general. Like, what is happening? Throwing cats up into the ceiling or something. Like,
that's literally
anyway.
how.
Back on topic. Let's get back here. So in your notes, you were talking a little bit about kind of getting more familiar, educating yourself with the Zoom platform, or, you know, whatever like virtual kind of platform that you were going to use. Tell us a little bit more about like that process for yourself.
Yeah. So again, I had to figure out how I was going to do all this. Zoom was a tool that we use and frankly probably abuse at the same time. But it was one of the most helpful things that I knew that I could display what I needed to have done. From my account, I knew that I had webinar access to do this. And so I knew that I could host webinar access in these webinars. So I had a great companion that worked with us at Huddle on our corporate ops team, and she literally mentored me everything from Zoom, which was great. So she taught me how to do the webinars, what I needed to do to make sure that things were successful, how do I make presenters actually a thing, where do I pull reporting from, and stuff like that. And it was a huge help. And as I was going through Zoom, I realized, oh my gosh, and now this is early COVID, so just know that we're there. Zoom has engagement data already built into it. They could pull that data, and it would be a matter of like, if you were looking at the screen or you went off on Slack or you did something, it would track that information for you. And so that was one of the things I was like, my life is made. This is easy. This is done. Then came on a privacy issue, and Zoom removed that almost immediately. And I sat there again, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is COVID 2.0. Now I got to figure out a way to educate myself again and find a way to actually track this engagement, because I just got done telling all of my executive leadership, this isn't an issue. I've got this in the bag. Like, I know how to track engagement through this. And so what it came down to is actually digging into Zoom and the reporting that they have, and how do I take the reporting that they have and measure that success from there and manipulate the data to show what I actually wanted it to be. And so that's where I came up with the idea of, how do I take polling, which is which is a feature inside Zoom that you can do in webinars or in meetings as well too, and type up those questions ahead of time and ask your presenters 2 to 5 questions of what you wanted them to have, either a correct answer or even just like a simple participation answer, like, what's your favorite color? That's at least some sort of engagement monitoring level there. And we took those questions with those answers and we broke it down. Zoom has a way that you could break it down by rep, which was phenomenal. So I could say, Rep Tom Hanks participated in only 8 out of the 11 questions, and he did not answer the last 3. So Tom Hanks jumped off early, probably due to some other issue or whatever, or just did not participate. And it was a good way for us to actually monitor and rank these reps, either out of 11 out of 11 questions, 0 out of 11 questions, and where do they get all those questions right as well too. So it was a cool way for us to take that data and really show participation and engagement throughout that. We also used Mentimeter, which was a huge asset. So if you want to talk about eliminating distractions, because we know our reps are probably either going to be on the couch, in their bed, down by the pool, they've got cats, dogs, kids, parents, whatever it might be that's distracting them, we want to eliminate those, and possibly even Netflix. So we wanted to remove those distractions as well. So using Mentimeter or Kahoot, pick up their phone and you get that distraction, and they have to have that in their face still working essentially. So it was a good way for us to actually pick up those informations and take those results as well too. So it was definitely interesting to get all of that done, but it was definitely a fun way to track engagement. And not only that, but afterwards, we did a survey asking about how all that was. And we actually motivated our speakers for the next time too by surveying all of our presenters and boosting, results as well for presenters for the upcoming sessions as well too.
That's great. And I think that's the thing that not just enablement is super stressed about, but definitely executives too, if they're spending this time away from phones or, daily kind of work, how do you gauge in, the engagement or participation? It can be very difficult in a virtual environment. So I love that you kind of have you went around and figured out these different ways that you could keep people engaged while making sure that you aren't kind of like compromising their privacy in a way
Right.
too,
Yeah.
Nice. So tell me, you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but let's dive in a little bit deeper into like your thought process when you were like, okay, COVID's here, here to stay. How do we do this virtual kind of in like kickoff? Walk us through your thought process. Like how did you do it? What did you do?
Yeah. First and foremost, I thought, shit, here we are. This is what this is going to be. This better work or I'm screwed. Like there is no other solution. I think I kicked it off my plate for about a week just to like debrief from it and try to get that, which was also a very risky thing to do. But, I think it was necessary. So, the big thing for me with kickoffs, and I've always felt inspired when it comes down to like big events. So Stephanie, where you and I met at Unleash, it was one of those that big production shows and big theme and what's up to come and what is going on. And that's exactly how a kickoff should be. So identifying what that theme is going to be is number one. Now, when hosting a virtual kickoff too, you can ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble, and it just it's monotonous. We've all seen the classic Snoopy comics and and that's all we hear. I've been a sales rep. I understand that that's where we go from, and just shut up and let me sell. And so when it comes down to actually providing good content, it's a matter of having those breaks. And when we're doing it in person, that we have those breaks. We have those bathroom breaks that get up and talks and social and whatever it may be. And so for every 90 minutes that you have a session for, slide a break in. Make sure that you have those designated breaks. And if you don't have those, you're going to lose your audience almost immediately. And that was one of the hardest things too, is planning all of my sessions around those 90-minute, blocks of information. I had guest speakers coming in. I wanted to make sure that I had enough time to talk about a new product feature that was coming up. I wanted to make sure that whatever topics needed to be in there, that I could fit within one day and in 90-minute blocks. And so that was one of the biggest challenges too, is deciding what is necessary and what isn't. One of the things that I told every one of my presenters is I don't want to know about the past, because this is a kickoff. I'm kicking off the year. I don't want to kick off the past anymore. So I want to know what we're doing in the future and not what we've done, because you've heard those in QBRs, you've heard those in past, newsletters or whatever it may be. Let's get excited about what we're doing this year. So having those standards set for each one of my presenters definitely paved the path that this is how we're going to run every single project initially from enablement. And so I think even having kickoff and having those initiatives, tracking engagement and making sure that we're trying to do the best thing for the reps and keeping them involved heavily has definitely set the stage for other projects that we're working on. And so just as a quick preview, I'm even right now tracking engagement with either posts or updates via Slack as well too. And so that's huge for us to identify where are our reps actually involved. And I think that's a big thing, that if you already have that data and you already know what motivates your reps internally through either an engagement survey or a pulse survey or whatever it may be, utilize that data in preparing your virtual event. I think that that's going to be probably the biggest things that you can use. If you have all of it, just use it. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. It doesn't make sense to. And trying new things isn't always the best thing, but it's definitely sometimes refreshing as well too.
Awesome. Yeah. Love all this. So let's keep going. So executive buy-in from leaders, I assume there was probably a lot of pressure coming from them.
Yeah.
How, did you get the buy-in from leaders, or did they kind of tell you that this needed to happen? How did you have that engagement or that communication with them? What did that look like?
Yeah. So this was the easiest project to probably get executive buy-in on. Uh, One, I didn't make the decision and they didn't make a decision. Nature made the decision. COVID happened and that's where we went. So we had to pivot. Like there was no other objections between those. So we couldn't do anything different. As far as, the how did we go about doing this and what did we do? One, our SVP was pretty excited. We were saving a lot of money, hotels, travel, resources going into it. So that was also an added perk to get buy-in in. And now it was a matter of what content are you presenting to make sure that it's actually, digestible and engageable at the same time. So at Huddle, we actually host 3 different kickoffs every year. We actually have them based off of region and market of where they're selling and stuff. So it's also one of those that how do you take the same thing that worked at one and make it work at the other, especially when it's a global company and you're trying to make sure that cultural differences are completely aligned, which that's one of the hardest things that I think that we struggled with while hosting one of our last ones. So the rest of the world does not know USA, The Office. It's, either the British version, and even that's not even like highly popular like it is here. And so it didn't quite work of how we were doing that. And even having clips or like that comedic relief sometimes isn't necessarily responded when in other countries or cultures when we're trying to be a serious company and drive that line across. So understanding those cultural differences was one of probably the biggest lifts that our executive leadership wanted us to look at and really identify what's going to work for each single person. And although we can't serve everyone individually, but we can take into consideration where they come from and what their backgrounds are. And so after all of this was done, they were very impressed. We were able to adapt. We were able to have a game plan spun up almost immediately because Zoom was technically our only option right now to host kickoff and exactly where we were going. So, of course, I referenced this earlier, but surveying afterwards, what people were saying about the kickoff, some verbatim that I got from the surveys was, love the digital format. I could not have imagined kickoff going any better. This had it was well thought out. There was no glitches, very well executed. Like that right there just reassures that people got stuff out of it.
On the plus side with the surveys, with a virtual environment, you aren't going to get the like, oh, the room was too hot or the room was too cold or the chairs were too hard. I have literally gotten those responses at every company that I've been at, every RKO that I've helped participate or helped like kind of spin up. You won't hopefully get those types of responses.
Yes. Or the food was just not good.
Yeah, or the food was not good. You're like, well, then you need to work on your own like culinary skills there.
Right.
So you touched on this a couple of times, but let's kind of reiterate it a little bit. How did you kind of measure your results that you wanted to track during this session?
Yeah, so I used polling, which is a feature that's listed in Zoom. I don't think it's overutilized, or it's definitely underutilized as far as what can actually be pulled from that. But I asked every presenter to give me 2 to 5 questions again, marking either the correct answer or kind of just a common theme question that they wanted to have, and that was the way that I was able to track those results. After each poll or question that was out there, it gave you how many people actually participated in that question, and it gave you the percentage almost instantly, so you could just write all those down. So there was a couple of us working on the back end to make sure that everything was right. And we were tracking those numbers as we went. And we could see at 8 a.m. I had 97% participation. But right around noon, of course, lunchtime, even though we had a lunch break planned, we were dipping around 82 or 79. And so we could see where those dips were. And we actually built like an engagement curve out of all of this based off of the survey responses that we were getting. And we also made sure that we tracked the number of participants at the bottom throughout every hour of the day too. So we could also measure who was coming and who was going. You can pull various kinds of reports out of there. You can pull unique users and see how long they were actually engaged and on Zoom. So if you were on for the full 6 hours of our kickoff call, you would see that their running time was 6 hours. If they ran 3 and 3 before lunch and after lunch, then you knew they were good too. But if they're running anywhere from under 5 and under 4, we knew that they weren't participating. We knew that they weren't able to join or had something come up, but we were able to reflect and coach on that to the managers and say, hey, your rep did not participate here, or you were not on during this time as well too. So use Zoom reporting. I encourage everybody to play around with it. If you host bi-weeklies via Zoom or any kind of meetings that you have, pull the reporting on it and just look at the data. It's very great. It's encouraging. And then definitely take that data and remanipulated it into Google Sheets, which I'll tell you right now, I suck 100% at Excel formulas. So if anybody's listening and knows how a great course for formulas, please teach me. But knowing those formulas and what you want to do for the vision definitely helps us this stage to produce at least an engagement report, or at least throw the information in there as well too. And then especially do not forget any kind of Kahoot or Mentimeter data that you pulled already and incorporate that as well into those reports.
That's great. And as far as Excel formulas, Google is your best friend, Matt. Like, I'll tell you right now, I can't tell you how many times I just type in like, how do you Excel sheet like formula, like all the time. So don't feel bad about that. So ultimately, and I know you're kind of starting with like your benchmark is basically non-existent for this type of reporting, but I mean, did you ultimately achieve the outcomes that you were hoping for?
I believe so. I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like, we've done everything in person and, we've never really created a baseline standard of what we wanted. And, again, virtual kind of just threw a wrench into what we were trying to measure from the year before. And so I think I actually got more results to create more of a baseline than I was even expecting. So going into the next year, I definitely know, like, this is what it was virtually. I know I can either do this better in person or at least the same. So, yeah, I'd say we kind of nailed it right on the head there.
Love it.
Yeah.
This has been such a phenomenal overview. And you very clearly, you didn't just throw this together willy-nilly. Like, this was a very well thought out strategy and plan and program. I mean, even though you did it virtually, I mean, it sounds like you kind of kicked ass on it, dude.
I like to say I did. If anybody wants to tell me differently, please, I want to make it better for you.
Awesome. So one of the things that I really enjoy or want to make sure that I kind of give everybody as a takeaway kind of at the end, something that's, actionable that they can take back to their own enablement practice or whatever it is. So what is one actionable insight that you think that people could take away from this program in particular?
Yeah. No matter what the world's going to throw at you, as far as events go, you got to take a step back. You got to think, who has done something like this? What has inspired me previously? And then what can I do to create something this amazing or magical at the same time? So, like I said, I've got the template that I threw in there. If you're creating a virtual event, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about that as well too. But use the template if you want, make a copy of it, and definitely try to imagine, kickoff is to kick off the new year, not to mourn what we've done in the past, but to get people pumped and excited. And if the people presenting or hosting aren't excited, nobody else will be. I know it's going to be a challenging event, but put on that happy face, drink a couple Red Bulls, whatever you might need, and yeah, just kind of rock it out at the end there.
I love this. This is great. Thanks so much for sharing your experience and your story and that template, which I will definitely post in the comments below. Like Matt said, if you want to connect with him, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. He's also in the Sales Enablement Squad. Be sure to check out his series, Bridging the Gap, which is a phenomenal web series where he talks to other stakeholders across the businesses to find out how enablement can best partner with them. Matt, any closing thoughts?
No, just have a great day. Stay safe. I can't wait to go to a conference with everybody else again. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Matt. And thanks to all of the viewers for watching. If you or someone that you know in the enablement community would be great to highlight on this show, please tag them in the thread or the comments below. And be sure to connect with Matt on LinkedIn or all of the social networks that he participates on. And until next time, keep building, everybody.